people and businesses around your neighborhood. That's a wet day for sure, and doesn't look like we're going to get any reprieve. Maybe just a little bit, but it won't be for too long, as more is expected this afternoon. So keep that umbrella handy if you're going to be out and about. Well, today's guest, as we like to bring him on once a month, we welcome one of our MAX sponsors, Johnson Danielson Funeral Home, and today we're going to talk about a topic here that, well, it's kind of been changing a little bit. And we're going to talk about why the reasoning for funerals. And I bring this up is because there's been a trend, a small trend, where people are kind of doing away with that, the funeral service part, and just doing, like, for example, cremation, and then that's it.
That's it.
Mm-hmm. So I want to remind everybody just kind of a little bit about the importance of a funeral and why we do have funerals. And we got Wendy here from Johnson Danielson Funeral Home to join us once again. So good morning, Wendy. And
good morning.
And let's kind of pick it up from there. You know, I've always grown up where funerals were very important when a loved one is passed. A lot for respect, and a lot of it was just our way of saying goodbye.
Correct.
You know, things change. I get it.
Yeah.
You know, but we don't want. I feel if we start getting away from funeral services, man, I just feel we're not honoring the full life of a person. That's just me.
Agree 100%. And I mean, think for a moment, what would happen if we no longer had funerals? I mean, you know, a meaningful funeral service is the hello of saying goodbye. You know, it's your first step in healing to the new normal of your loved one being gone. And I mean, it's a terrible thing to skip that step, and a lot of people struggle. You know, the value of life, you hear of all these murders and, you know, 18-year-olds murdering 18-year-olds, and the value of life. I guess if you don't have a funeral, is that another step in just, you know, devaluing the life of an individual? Funerals are expensive too, and I understand that, but you know.
Well, here's the thing: you got to ask yourself a question. You know, can you put a price on losing a loved one?
Oh gosh, no.
I mean, that's really what it kind of boils down to.
Personally, I could not.
Yeah, and I would struggle with that too.
Yeah.
You know, when I leave this earth, I hope we have a party. You know, and I hope Johnson Danielson Funeral Home is going to be spearheading it. But you know, I really feel that, you know, can you put a price on someone's
Well, you know,
death?
if we did away with funerals, what would happen to funeral homes? There's number one. Since you
guys are part of a funeral home,
yes.
Right? Yeah.
and not just us, any funeral home, you know, what would happen? And I think families and friends would become more disconnected because people gather to speak of the loved one, to share memories, and that helps healing for those left behind. When you're planning a funeral, you know, a person will come in and say, you know, oh, I don't want the bother. I don't worry about doing anything with me. Just, you know, brush me under the rug and I'll be done with it. But it's not just about you. It's about the ones you leave behind.
Right.
What are the ones left behind going to need to get over you? You know, you've meant so much to so many people. And, you know, although you don't want us to go to any trouble, you know, for you, other people want to go to the trouble to memorialize, to remember you, to gather and speak of you. And that's a healing process. And I think if you don't have that healing process started, like I said earlier, you're going to be friends and family disconnect. I think depression will set in because, you know, you're trying to deal with something enormous on your own. When you get to a gathering like this, you express, you understand, and there's something knowing that you're not the only one in a situation that makes you feel so much better. You know, someone else feels the same way you do at that moment. And it it's healing, and that's what you
Yeah.
need when you lose a loved one.
Well, and you do, and sometimes it's the easiest when you have family around you. And, hence the reason why we try to have funeral services. Obviously, things are looked at different now than what they were back in our days, and probably as early as maybe 5 to 10 years, or maybe even before COVID, if we want to go ahead and point a finger at events of get-togethers. But I think that it has. A lot of people don't want to deal with everything that comes along with the funeral services. Well, there's an answer for that. It's called Johnson Danielson Funeral Home. Let them take the headache out of it. And a lot of people think that's just what it is. And it really doesn't have to be a headache.
No.
And then there's the financial obligation to it. Yeah, well, guess what? They can take care of that too. They can set you up with a pre-plan. They can set you up with maybe just a way of making payments. I mean, those options are not available, or they are available.
Yes. The number one important part is have a talk with your family, with a good friend. If you don't have any close family, because there's a lot of estrangements in families anymore, get with someone you trust and get your wishes talked about. Then you need to get them documented. Then you need to get them in Johnson Danielson Funeral Home, because if the unthinkable does happen, we will have it documented. We will know what you wanted. And that is such a relief for family and friends left behind, because we have a clear path to follow. We'll know exactly what this person wanted, and there's no guessing. And, if they wanted no service, they wanted no service. But, somehow, some way, have a memorial. A lot of people now are choosing cremation. It's obviously less expensive. But you can have a memorial service even with cremation. A lot of people
absolutely.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
And we can have a traditional service with a casket, with everything available. And then after the service concludes, then you can be cremated, or you can be cremated from the get-go and have a memorial service in our beautiful funeral home. And, the trend now is, people will wait, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, and have a memorial service as a much later date. Like I said earlier, a funeral service is the first step in healing. Do you really want to put off your healing for 6 months, 3 months? It's really kind of important to, start the healing process as soon as possible when you lose a person. And that's why, our beautiful funeral home is available, and we'll take all that burden off you with the planning. We'll have staff available, and we go above and beyond. If certain people have certain likings, we will make sure that's available, just to kind of lighten the mood. We've had a candy, not a candy bar, but a bar with all different kinds of candies that were the favorites of the deceased. And that people were gathered around that table speaking. It just kind of broke the ice. Because when you go in a funeral home, you look straight ahead and you don't look around, you don't speak. This brought people together to speak. And
it doesn't have to be somber.
No.
It
this
doesn't
is
have to
where,
be somber.
We go above and beyond to try and help people begin this healing, to memorialize what this was about. If people have a favorite movie, a favorite anything, we will try and work that in. We had a lady just absolutely loved Christmas. It's March. Doesn't matter. They loved Christmas. It's going to be Christmas at that funeral home. That's where we go above and beyond for anybody to help this healing process begin.
It's always interesting. And again, different strokes for different folks. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the idea of just having the person deceased and then have nothing, that to me just shows that, so they were considered nothing. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah.
I mean, people, I don't care how they were, how they treated others. Family's family.
Right.
And granted, not all of us get along with family.
Right.
But guess what? The person who passed away was a big part of it.
Right.
And
right.
And
are you going to put them out with the recycling?
Yeah, because that's the way it makes me feel that you do when you don't do that.
Right.
And like I said, as far as the financial assistance is concerned, there's always an avenue.
Right.
Always an avenue.
And the sooner you start, the better you are, because, we can stretch payments out 10 years.
Sure.
And it's just, you don't even realize it. And here you are, 70 years old. It's taken care of. That burden is off your shoulders. And your children don't have to worry about it. And just the fact that, you know that you've relieved your children from the financial burden, from the making the plans. Everything is all done so much further in advance. And, my recommendation is do it before you retire, because, as soon as you retire and you're relying on Social Security, in your mind you're thinking, oh my gosh, I am on such a tight
budget.
Set budget, a set income. I can't afford to have something like this extra. But can you go to the coffee shop and get the $9 latte? Can you just plan in advance for something? It's going to come. Whether you have the money for it or you don't have the money for it, you're going to pass. And, how do you want to be remembered? Just think about it in advance, get everything documented, and we'll make it happen.
I've been to funerals where there's been a rift in the family, and yet the funeral service went without a hitch.
That's where our directors...
As a matter of fact, those who were angry with each other realized it wasn't worth being angry anymore. And they realized how much their mom or their dad meant and were the glue to making it all work. So, again, I go back, is the loss of a loved one...
This is where...
you really want to put a price tag on that? And then
this
the answer
is
should
where
be
our
no.
directors come into place, because they are trained professionals. Tony, I couldn't come and sit in your chair and do radio all day.
Right.
And, I can't be an accountant. I can't be. These are trained professionals. This is what they do. They navigate family situations. This is what they do. Just... you can't immediately, just because you lost your loved one, have the skill to deal with that. Let the professionals do it. They will navigate it for you.
Your job is to grieve.
Yes. And they are the ones that will help family members work it out. We'll make sure that you're not seated by the uncle that you don't like. We will work it out. That's where we're professionals. You stay the professional at what you do, and let Johnson Danielson's professionals do what they do.
Well, grieve and let you guys do the rest. That's it. Your time is to grieve. And that is so important to do.
Yes, it is.
Because if you don't, man, it'll
fester inside you and come out in other ways. The happy-go-lucky person, because you're constantly thinking and regretting about things you did, and you don't have to regret. We'll handle it for you. We'll make it a celebration that you really appreciate.
And we talked about pre-planning the last time you were here, and you can go back at our archive and watch that. The pre-planning part, I really want to just tell everybody today, is the fact that it's easy to do.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
It starts with a phone call.
And it doesn't take long.
Yeah.
It doesn't. And if you want us to come to you, we will. If you want to see our beautiful funeral home, come in. I'll give you a tour. If you would like to meet at Common Ground, I will meet you at the Coffee Lodge. I will meet you in the park, whatever makes it comfortable for you to talk about this and get this over with. And I cannot tell you one single person that I have planned, and since I've been doing this for 6 months, when they get up and walk out the door, they look at me and go, oh gosh, I wish I hadn't have done this. Never, ever, ever has that happened.
No.
They're just glad it's done, it's documented, and that's a huge burden off of them. And again, if you look at me and say, oh, I can't afford that, I don't want to deal with that, it's coming. Whether you can afford it and whether you want to deal with it, it's going to happen. So better to be prepared in advance.
And let Johnson Danielson Funeral Home
Yep.
take some of that burden off.
Yep.
And that's
Yep.
especially from the financial standpoint. And that's a lot of people don't understand that you can do that. You can work with you guys on that. And it's such an emotional time, and everybody's so on pins and needles because of what's happened. It's life.
Yep.
It's just life. But let the professionals, like you said, let them take care of the stuff that you can't, and you really wouldn't want to if you did this whole thing by yourself.
Correct. And another thing to think about, Johnson Danielson, obviously we do a lot for Plymouth, but we have been helping families in Bremen, Culver, Knox, Donaldson.
You're all over the county.
Yeah, we will help you wherever.
Right. Well, it's hard to believe that every time you come here, we take up time. It goes by so quick. We'll have you back in next month. I want to let everybody know that too. Johnson Danielson's Funeral Home and Jamie, they work with Dustin's Place, and Dustin's Place got their big golf outing on Friday, the 14th of June. Check that date. And if you want to get a team in that, we encourage you to do so. Dustin's Place is a wonderful organization. And if you want to find out more, go to their website. But put that down, June 14th, Dustin's Place. They're going to have their big golf outing. So, Wendy, thanks for coming in today.
Yes, thank you for having me.
We hit everything we needed to hit, right?
We did.
I think so.
And again, if we did not, Johnson Danielson, you can call us 574-936-2829. Someone will be there to answer questions, pre-planning, funeral services, what's it cost, all that kind of stuff.
All that kind of stuff. Get prepared.
Yep.
Thanks, Wendy.
You're welcome.
We'll be back to wrap things up here on the Marshall County Today Show after this.